Hi all, I have the Photoshop file in front of me right here that we're going to go to in a few minutes. But before you actually start watching me paint this face, which I hope to do in probably two movies for all the colors and one movie for the texture. But I want to go to this YouTube movie that I had created here, and I'll actually bring it up in the regular movie here. So let me minimize this. So what I want you to see is, what I want you to do is watch this movie. This movie is called the Learning How to Paint Soft Blends movie. It's the #1 movie. Now it takes you from having secured that you have gotten through this hard product. And then it takes you and makes you, I've shown you in this movie, in the first movie, that I actually have this face painted very sophisticated if that's the right word, in about 21 or 22 movies. That's all on YouTube. It's all in my advanced Photoshop playlist. But I want to do this movie and just get you started in 2 or 3 movies. Okay? It's not that hard. So I show you here in every single situation that everything that you do is broken down into a solid value. I showed you in this face, going back to the finish face here. Then I showed you in this how this is actually started out as a simple value, where I start you out right here in a solid value, taking you to the next phase dark, the next phase dark right here, which is there, the next phase dark, and the next phase light, which is this one right there. Right there, and then the final light. So everything is broken into simple shapes. It's so actually stupidly simple that we all tend to make it too complicated. So at the end of this movie, I show you that I break down the face into values. Well, that's where I'm going to start this #2 movie. So let's get right into it. Okay? Here is the face that I painted. Here is the actual painted face. So this is the clicky copy, and this is what I painted. Now, how did I break this face down into, and let me turn this off, how did I break it down into these shapes? How did I know to break it down? Well, I went to the clicky copy, and I cheated. I actually used a filter. So I went to, and I found that the cutout filter is a really good filter on 8. So I notice I made a duplicate copy of this, but I'm going to throw it away in a minute. So I went to the filter gallery and I clicked on cutout right up here. Okay. And I put it on 8 on the number of levels because there was hair and shirts and everything else. But do you see how this broke the face down into pretty much a solid value with 4 darks? Well, and I'm not worried or looking at the jaggedness of the lines, I'm looking at the shapes. I mean, that's basically how you paint this face, except you do it with clean paths. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this and I'm going to throw this away, but I want to begin at the beginning, which is kind of silly, but I'm going to do it. So I'm going to go to the cutout filter here and turn it off. So there was my cutout filter right there. Okay, and I even labeled it light, fill, color 1, 2, 3, 4, and everything. So you can stop this movie and look at that, but that's fine. I mean, that's just breaks the face down. Now, let me take this face that I had in, see how I labeled it solid fills? And I don't want to make my layers bigger here because then I would have to scroll too far up and down to see it. I took off the eyes on this just because I wanted you to concentrate on the face. All right, what I should do, and I took off the mouth too. What I should do is take off the shirt. I should remove the background, okay? But I like having that muted feel for the background. It gives me a good feel when I go back and forth from the clicky copy. Do you follow what I'm saying? Okay, so what I want to do here is to turn off the hair. So I'm going to do that. Okay, now I'm going to click this back and forth a few times, meaning the clicky copy. And I want you to look at the darks that I've placed and the lights that I've placed. They're just position. And it wouldn't matter if they were drawn a little differently or if let me zoom in. It wouldn't matter if this line that I'm pointing at was a little bit to the left or to the right, and it wouldn't matter if this one was skinnier or fatter. But you can see when I zoom out just how reasonable, I guess, that is. Okay, and I even had this nose actually on top because I wanted to come back with a lighter value. And I want to tell you that I've trained my eye to actually look at values. Now, why I'm zooming in on this is I want to show you something. See how this nose is dark from the nostril to the inside? See how it's darker and the skin on the face is lighter? Okay, so what I'm saying is, if I go like this and I actually draw this middle dark, this burnt sienna tone from the left side to the right side of his nose, I can use a layer mask to take away the stuff I don't want, right? Which makes this value on the edge of the nostril work. Now that's how I want you to almost paint by number on the face, but keep it simpler. And it's going to take practice, but looking at a face like this with all the values is hard. So what I'm going to do is strip it down to this. So now let me turn off this. So now there's your overall face. I'll even turn off the background right now. So there's your overall face and hair and everything else. Okay, that's just the value. Now let me click on the clicky copy. See how that's just the value? You got to start there. You got to start there. Now, what I want to do is I want to turn on this little face that I had just to have it in the corner down here so you can see it. Okay, so here we go. So I determined through this path right here, and I'm going to bring up the clicky copy, I determined that there were the secondary darks. So if this was the face tone value, if this was the middle value for the face, well, what's the next value dark? Well, I've kind of made them there. Now, if two of these paths overlapped each other, I would do it in two paths. See? Two paths. But I needed one path right here. Now, that one is for the darks. Now, even though there's only a dark inside of here, remember, I can layer mask everything off after I Gaussian blur it. You saw me paint the ball. You saw me paint the sphere. You saw how much I took away. You can keep on taking away and putting back to your heart's content, and that's the secret. That's the simple secret. Okay, so there's how I drew the secondary darks. Here's how I drew the third darks. Here's how I drew the final darks. See? So just get them in there. Now, here is for the neck. This was for the darkness from the neck down, so I could separate the face and the neck. Here are the highlights. So when I click the clicky copy on and off, you can see those are going to be the highlights. So basically, if I show you this, and this, along with a nose, okay, and let me move this down a little bit. And then I even had the final face darks. So through a series of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in getting the values in there. Now, what do I mean by that? This is what you have to do. So look what I did. I went, there's my secondary darks, there's my third darks, there's my final darks. Now let me turn the clicky copy on. Do you see how those kind of line up? See how they make sense? They don't look very good, and nothing is going to look good, repeat after me, until 70% completed. Repeat after me, repeat after me. You're going to doubt it, you're going to think it's yucky, and just get to that 70% completion stage and you'll start to look at it and say, wow, this thing looks pretty good. I'm going to actually click to that small face and hit Command T on it, and I'm going to shrink it a little bit more and put it down lower. There. Now I'm going to save the file, and save after everything you do. Okay, so going back to this. So there's the neck dark right there. Here is the highlights on the face. So we don't start with that. We end with that in this scenario. So what I'm going to do is now show you, I'll redo this. I promise I'll redo this. But I'm going to go to the ones that I did here. Now let me open this up and turn off the hair and turn off the eyes and turn off the mouth. And turn off the texture. Because that texture is really cool. Now I turned what you saw let me see if I can get this right. I'm going to go here and turn this off, and this is what you have. So from this, I get this. Through a series of Gaussian blurring and layer masks. That actually is it. Now, if I turn this off and on, you can see that I'm pretty close. I mean, I'm real close. I mean, I'm an artist. I can interpret what I want, right? Okay, so let's begin that process. Now, how do I begin that process? I'm going to turn all this back on because I'm going to want to refer to it in a few minutes. But, whoops, let me go like that. Okay, now turn this off. Now let me turn off the clicky copy. Now I don't want to ruin the solid fill here. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is save the file and save as, wait till it comes up, save as child face demo. So I don't mess up my original. Should always get used to doing that. Now I can go in, and what I should do here is, and do you remember that I said don't ruin something when you can just duplicate it? Well, I'm going to do the same thing that I just said. So I'm going to go down here and duplicate the entire folder. I can lock it if I want. I don't need to. I can go up here and actually show that folder right there, this one that I'm clicking on, and just hit the lock button. Now, I don't ever lock anything. I mean, I just have it on or off, okay? In Illustrator, yes, you have to lock stuff up, but not, I mean, that's just my way that I do it. But let's go down to here now, and let's go into the face and open it up and make sure the other one is off in visibility, and let's turn this off. Now let's start with this. Looking at the little face there, and sometimes I do this. See how the clicky copy is way up there? Well, sometimes I actually put the clicky copy at the top of the folder, so I can just keep on moving it up and down without having to scroll too high. You understand, okay? So now, you can see what I need to do. I need to Gaussian blur this, and then I need to remove paint. Well, it can be this easy. Okay, so when I click on this one, I'm going to make sure no selection is active, and I'm going to go to Filter and to my Gaussian blur, and I'm going to Gaussian blur it until it looks good, which is going to be somewhere in that neighborhood right there. So now I need to click the clicky copy on. Now, do you see how, especially here, let me zoom in, do you see how I could use the clicky copy to help me take away paint? What do I mean by that? So I add a layer mask to it. I take my paintbrush and I make it relatively smaller, but not small. Now I'm only painting on 8 on the flow. I'm painting in what color to remove paint? Yes, it's black. So I'm good. And I'm going to right-hand click and double check that I'm almost all the way or all the way soft. Okay, cool. Now I'll make the brush a little bit smaller. Now, I'm actually not going to be able to see what I'm painting until I turn off this clicky copy. But I'm going to use the clicky copy. Watch this. I'm going to click right here and paint up and down, right like this. Do you see how I'm doing that? Up and down. Now I know that I've removed this much of that paint on that layer that I'm clicking on and off. Now let's remove the other side. Okay, I need to come into this side and I need to remove the paint on this side. Okay, that's cool. Look what I just did. I thinned it down. Now, as I look on this, it gets lighter right up on this corner, so all I do is take a bigger brush and just click and just lighten it up on the corner. Now when I click this on and off, you can see how good I've done. Now the bottom needs to be lightened up too. Okay, I'm almost done that one. It's beautiful. Now let's go around the eye. Let's see what I need to do around the eye. Well, around the eye, I'm pretty good, but this needs to back off a little bit right there. This needs to stay put. I don't even need to do almost anything there. Let's see the nose. The nose actually needs more paint. I need more paint coming down, but I can do that later, and I'm good to go right there on that. Okay, so now we are going to go to the secondary dark. Okay, let me turn this off and show you what I'm talking about. There's the secondary dark. Now, you'll get good at this, but how much do you Gaussian blur it? Well, let's look over here on this cheek, right here. How much do you Gaussian blur it? Well, let's turn this off. Let's keep our eye on our little figure down there. Let me make this smaller. So now I'm going to keep my eye over here and my eye over here on this guy. I'm going to hit the V key so I can click here and show you. I'm actually looking right there. Okay, so let's go to filter and back to this Gaussian blur stuff, and let's see if 21 was enough. Actually, yeah, it was enough. I think that's good. Now, do you see what I need to reduce? Yes, I need to add more paint up here, but that can be later. Okay, I just want to go in there and reduce some of this. Now, let's start with this. How do you reduce it? You add a layer mask. I know this is overwhelming, but you know what? Just stick with me and you will get it. Look at how on this part right here, see that? It needs to back off. So I'm going to take my paintbrush and just paint. Notice I'm painting on the layer mask and I can't even see what I'm doing. Now, do you see what I just did? Now I'm going to Command Z back and Command Z back again, and I'm going to show you there it's back. Now all I did was go like this and just back off a little bit, but I used the layer mask to help me. Now it's the same way if I just went like this and kept on turning it off. So now let's go here and let's just back a little bit off of here. And now that looks pretty good. Little bit off of down here. Now let's look at the nose part. Okay, I'm going to do something now. This might scare you, but I'm still going to do it. See how this dark brown value is really cool? Where I'm pointing, I'm going to go to the V key. See how it's really cool right here on the bottom of the nose? See how from this part of his nose right there, it no longer exists. The brown is gone except for the cleft on his lip. Well, I have his nose right there. So if I make a selection of it, see what I did? Now, if I inverse it, now I really shouldn't go up here, but it's Shift Command I or Shift Control I. If I inverse it, that means I'm painting on the outside, right? Okay, cool. So now I turn this off. I take my paintbrush. I make sure I'm on the layer mask. I'm going to hit Command H so you know that I'm actually now removing some of that paint. See how I removed it? Now, what I want to do here is I want to put the cleft back. So I click this on. Now I'm going to come up here and I hit the X key. I make my brush smaller and I paint a little bit. Look, I'm painting, painting, painting at 5% or 8%. And look what I did. I'm putting the cleft back in. Now, do you see how cool that is? Now, that's really neat. Now, I went a little too far on it, so I'm going to hit the X key again, and I'm going to remove a little bit. Now I've got the cleft back in. Okay, so now make sure Command H is off. Okay, so I just hit Command H again, and now Command D. Now let's make sure we're still on the layer mask. Let's now kill the color on his nose. This is too, see where I'm pointing right there? It's too much. So if I just look at his nose over here, I should do something right now, okay? I need this picture closer to me, but this is what I've done. See up here, I took the clicky copy and I made, let me back off. See how I made his eyes, but I made them lower than where they were? See how I made his mouth, but I made it higher than where it was? See how I made his nose over here? Well, I'm going to zoom in now, and I have his nose right next to me. So now I can see where I have to back off. Now, what I mean by that is, I can not only use the clicky copy, but I can, and I'm going to make sure I'm still on the layer mask. You got to make sure that. Now look at how I can just click and I can remove some of that paint that's right by his nose. Now look at how gentle that's already turning out. I mean, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Now I want to back off a little bit on this nostril. So here comes the nose again. I'm going to hit Command H. I'm going to take a little bit of this away. So look at now how I have his nostril coming off on the one side. Now see how pretty that is? Now let's try to get a little bit of this color going in. So let me get close. Watch what I do here. I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to come straight down this line right here. I'm going up and I'm going down and I'm going to click, 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 click. Now look what I've done. See how I've started to back off? And when I say back off, I meant remove some of that value around his nostril. Now let's soften it as it moves over to the edge. So let's come over to here and just click, just soften a little bit. I'm going to hit the X key because I don't like what I just did up there, and I'm going to put it back. Now, let's just put it back in. There. Now, I have that starting to work real nice. Now, let me turn on the clicky copy. Okay, see how it does this kind of little dippy doodle right there? Well, I'm going to actually make sure I'm painting in black, which I am now, and I'm going to take the brush and go like this and like this. Now look what I did. I actually started to make that little shape on his nose come up. Now look at how nice that's starting to look. When I turn this off and on, I'm starting to get the feel that I want. Now I need to even come up higher here. What I mean by that is this should actually come up higher. Now I need to turn off the selection. Remember I had that on? I'm going to turn it off because I want a freehand paint in there. But if I go too far, I'll just take the X key and put it back in. Now let's go over to this side of the nose. Let's make this start to work on this side. Okay, look what I need to do. I am going to do three things. I'm going to hit the V key. I'm going to right-hand click. I'm going to move the nose over a little farther because that took me to that layer. Now I want to paint back on this layer. Watch. Right-hand click to number 2. See how cool that is? And click back over to the layer mask. Now, I need to feel what I need to do what it is I see. See how this dark value here goes from the edge of his nose to the inside? So I need to stop that dark value that I painted right here. Well, there's my nose again. So I make a selection of it. I go Shift Command I or Shift Control I. Now I'm painting on the outside. Okay. I hit Command H to hide it. Turn this off. Come over here like this. Take my paintbrush, make it bigger, and I'm going to just back off, meaning paint a little bit so that that is gentle over here. Okay. Now let's do the same thing, but on the inside of the nose. So I go Shift Command I or Control Command I. Now I'm painting back on the inside of the nose because I re-inversed it. Now I hit Command H. Now all I need to do actually, and I really almost don't even need this selection. So look, I'm going to turn on the clicky copy. I know this is hard to understand, but this is how you paint. Watch how if I just back off or paint a little black on the layer mask, I'm not afraid to put too much. Look at how I'm actually now removing the paint from that nostril. Now, let me move this up a little bit so I can see. Now, let's come across here a little bit. Just like this. Let's come on the bottom over here and look at how that nose is actually starting to look like a nose. Okay, that's actually starting to look just like the clicky copy. Now I have more to remove. So now I can just keep on clicking until I'm happy with how much I've removed. Now here's a mistake. Whoops, I just removed everything I didn't want there. So all I have to do is hit the X key and put it back. So you can see now how I've put it back. Right there. Now I need to hit the X key and remove a little bit more. So I also need to remove more paint from the outside because you can see I actually I'm pointing at it right there. I actually put more dark brown back in here. So how do I get rid of that? I go back to the nostril, which was right here. I inverse it, Command Shift I hide it, and I paint a little bit of the B key color, the black, back out here to lighten that up. And now that's going to look pretty good. Okay, I like what I've gotten so far. All right, now look at how in a few minutes I turned those ugly shapes into some, and they weren't ugly, they were just big, right? So I'm going to deselect and keep on painting. Now the nose is a little bit more sophisticated than anything else, but it wasn't that hard. Now look at how that's starting. Look at when I'm back here, look at how that's starting to look like him. I don't have the final darks in there. That's on this layer. So look at, that's on this layer. So I can even get to the final darks. Now let me turn off his nose right now. And let's go into his cheek area and put in some of those final darks. Okay? And then I'll show you how, I'll go back to the one, whoops, I just hit the microphone. I am so sorry. Now I'm going to go into the one that I actually finished painting. Okay, because I don't really think I need to actually go in and show you everything. It's going to take way too long, but you need to know and see the layers going back in. So I'm going to click on the one that I finished. Okay, I'm going to go now and turn off the one that I've been painting on, but I'll go back to it probably. Now I'm going to open it up. Now I'm back in the face. Now you can see if I turn off the hair, the eyes, the mouth, the texture, I actually have the nose fix. Here are the same layers that I just painted for you. Now I have more layers in there because I have some fix-it layers, but let me go back down to where I was. Now look how close that is to the one I just had. Okay, so the next one that went in was the dark. This is the one that I want to paint for you right now. Notice there's not a lot of dark right there yet, but it's going to be. So I'll close this, turn this back on, and go back to the one I was painting. So now here's the one that doesn't have any Gaussian blur on it. So I click to it. I go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and now I'm going to Gaussian blur that, not 21. 21 is too much. So let me go to, well, I don't know, maybe that was not so bad. Let me go to that much, just because it looked right. Now, what I need to do from this distance is make my brush bigger. I need to back off. Whoops. Yes, there we go. I need to paint some more right there. Okay, I don't know why that's not going away. Let me see. Oh. No. Okay. Oh, you know why? Because I needed to remove it from this one too. This one has too much paint over where I'm pointing, and this one had too much paint. So I need to go back to this one, meaning the layer mask, and I need to reduce that paint. I never did that on this side. Now I need to go show you that on this one, I'll turn it off and on, that I probably took away too much there. So I'm going to hit the X key and put some back in. And now let's come in like this. And let's hit the X key and just make that a little bit softer right there. Okay, now let's zoom in and see what we've got going here. Okay, so what I need to do now, and what I did on the other file, was this. I want you to see this. I am going to add a layer here, and I'm going to call it Fix 1. Now, I need to take some of this paint right here, this color right here, and I need to paint in a freehand style right over this, because right now the difference between the light value and the value I have is close, but it's not perfect. So look at how I'm actually going to just freehand paint a little bit more of that value, and I'm going to work my way right down his face like this, and I'm going to work right down to his chin, and I'm going to keep on turning this off and on until I get this right. Now a little bit more right here, A little bit more right here. I can hardly make a mistake by just painting on 8. 8 is almost nothing. If I want to reduce it to 5, I'll reduce it to 5 or even 4. So look at how now I've got that working good. And notice how I don't care if I get paint out here. Do not care about that. It means nothing. Let's go up here. Let's see what we're having to do here. Okay, so this whole area now needs to get more value right here. So let's come up higher. Let's paint it wherever he is. So let's come around this side right here. Okay, that looks good. And now, little bit on his eyes. I haven't even gotten to his eyes yet. So let's come around here. Let's soften this. Now I need to do something. I need to take and I need to clip these layers. I need to clip everything that's here. Watch, watch, watch. I need to clip. I need to take the mouth and go up actually higher with the mouth, way up here. So now, these layers here need to clip to that face. Now, the problem is that the face fill on my thing isn't in this face layer. Okay, the mouth actually needs to go up higher than that, right there. Now, I need to fix this. I need to put this to align exactly with this. Now, watch when I clip. I'm going to clip 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you see all that clean up there? Let me turn off that mouth right now. And now, if I turn on the clicky copy, you can see that I'm starting to get his face really good. Okay, now, I need to see something. What happened to my nose fix? So let me see where I messed up. Oh, right. Okay, that's it right there. So I need to now take paint off of this layer around his nose. I probably don't need much of that paint around his nose. So let's put his nose back on so I can see where it is. That one's probably not a bad one because I want to remove it. Actually, I'll put this one on over here. And I'm going to put it just like this. All right, so first thing is, let's now remove most of this paint where I don't need it. Well, the first thing is, make a selection of this and inverse it. Okay, now let us hit Command H, make the brush smaller. Let's turn on the clicky copy, make sure we're painting on the correct layer. We're not. Okay, so here is the layer that I want to be on and the layer mask I want to be on. So now I'm going to turn on the clicky copy and I want to thin down this outside part right here. So I'm thinning it down. Okay, that's going to look good right there. Okay, now let's, and be patient. I'm telling you to be patient. Command Shift I or Control Shift I again, so I'm painting inside the nose. Now let's turn this on. Let's now back off on this paint right here so I can start to see this right here. Let's look over here and let's now come down this way. And let me turn this back on. Whoops, I clicked to it. I did not mean to click to it. Okay, so I'm going to turn on that layer and I'm going to go down here like this and I'm going to fix that section right there where I only want that amount of dark right there. Now I should have it pretty much right where I want it. Now I'm going to take off most of this paint. Then I'll actually put some back on in a minute. Okay, let me deselect. Let's now click some of this off. Let me turn off that layer to show you what I've done. See, what I've done already is I've already done that. Now let me get the brush, come around the bottom here. Let's now come around the bottom right there. Let's come around the side of his nose. Let's now hit this real good right there. And you can see just how subtle and how pretty that is. Okay, and I need a little bit more dark right in that area, so I hit the X key and I'm going to put a little bit back in right as it goes down to that nostril right here, and that is looking good. So now let's hit the X key again. I should be painting in white. I want to put a little bit more dark around this area. Now I back off, and meaning in distance, and now you can see just how I have not a bad amount of paint in that area. And there is how I'm actually starting to look. Let me now remove more paint from this side of his nostril. Okay, that's way too dark right there. So now let's take this back. Let's take this back here. Now I'm going to click back on this one right here, and I want to put some more of that brown value in there. So I'm going to hit the X key and come in here and put in some more of that brown value from the layer that's below. And that's the kind of thing that you need to do. You need to go back and forth until it looks good. And then remembering I don't have the final darks in there yet. So now look what this looks like if I turn this off. Look what this looks like. I'm putting his clicky copy way back up here when I actually put in some of the darks that I had there. Now, look how nice that looks. Now, I am not sure how much I've turned off or on this. This is my soft one. So now I'm going to go turn on some of these layers. So let me zoom in. These are the layers. See that dark right there? See how that dark really helped that nose? Okay, so that is the one that I'm talking about to go down on this one. And that one came from, you see how I just painted right there? And I really hit that dark, so I'll come back and do that. Let me grab this color right there. Let's go turn this off, which is the one I finished. Let's now go back to this one, Command click the path, inverse it, hide it, make this tiny bit darker, as I told you I would. I need a layer to paint on now. Now this is the soft one, so I'm turning it off. I'm collapsing the layer. I don't know. Oh, okay. Collapsing the layer. Sorry about that. Let's go back to here now, and I need a fix number 2, which I'm going to clip. And I'm going to type nose. Whoops. Good. Now I'm going to clip it. So I Option or Alt click between. I'm going to now show you the nose right there so I can look and see. Let me zoom in. Now let's just get the smaller brush, and now let's start to get darker next to the nose. Let's get darker on the nostril. Now notice the darker that I go as I'm painting here. Very cool concept to understand. The lighter the other values are getting. Notice that. That's pretty cool. Now remember, I'm hitting Command H so you can see. I have that as a selection and I inversed it. Now, this is where you start to say to yourself, wow, this is actually starting to work. Now you see how pretty that is. See how amazing that is. See where you thought this was too dark? I actually have to go darker. Okay, now that is a pretty good rendition of that nose via the clicky copy. Now, what I need to do is to complete that and look at how this teensy weensy bit of paint really helped bring off the layers. How many values were there? Look what I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just on the nose area. Now I can use some of these layers when I actually go and paint away some of the stuff around the mouth, around the eyes, and everything else. Okay? Now that should have been a really good way for you to see. I'm going to take them off now. That should have been a really good way for you to see how to go from a flat value, given that you need to put in your first darks, your second darks, your third darks, and 2 fix-it layers right there. And that really does help with everything. Now I'm going to turn this face off, turn off this copy of this layer off, turn the one that I painted back on, and now let's go see the other layers that I painted. Now I'm going to turn off the nose. Yeah, you got to stay organized, but it's okay. Now look what the other layers are like. Okay, here's the next one going in. You see how I added the color around the eyes. All right, I should bring the clicky copy down here so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, I think I can get to everything right there. So look at how I actually added that color around the eyes. Now I've added the darks. You see how I added those darks that I said I needed to re-add back in? Just 2 little darks. I then added that around the eyes and the upper eyebrows. I then added a little bit more light value on his face, then a little bit more darkness around his right eye. It's really his left eye. And I'm now going to add the dark around here and the final darks on his face. Now, here comes the nose, the mouth, okay? And in the mouth, I actually used color range to grab those values right there. Now, what I'd like to do on the final movie is to show you the hair and how I grabbed those textures, but I'm not going to do it now. So I did the same thing when I did the eyes. I used color range, I'll show you. And I did the exact same thing on the hair. So that's going to be the next movie. Now, whatever face you're painting, you need to not worry about the eyes and the mouth and the hair, and you need to just get the face values correct. Doesn't matter how many layers you take. And remember, it's one color on one layer, and then layer mask it and remove what you don't want. Again, I'm going to turn this off and on and show you exactly how good that looks. Now, before I go too farther, I will turn on the mouth, the eyes, the hair, and I'll turn off this. I should have done that. I did that in the wrong. Okay, I did that in the wrong thing. I should put this clicky copy way up here. Now, here comes the hair, the eyes, the mouth. And I also put the little mole on his face. And that's pretty cool. I mean, here is an amazing thing that I'll show you in the third movie, which is the face texture. Now, without the face texture, which we use color range on to get, it just looks like he's like plastic right there. Now he looks real. And that's cool. And that's what I want to show you. So what in the next movie? I should have finished my sentence. So now what I want you to do, let me turn off the texture. What I want you to do is to get to this stage and have faith in your painting. And you won't have faith in the layer process. So the layer process showed you, and I'm going to go back down to this one after I turn this off, and then I'm done this movie. I want to go back to, no, I'm going to close that one. Sorry, it's too many layers. And then I'm going to go to the solid fill here, and it's the copy, and I'm going to turn, whoops, I need to turn it on. Okay, what am I doing wrong here? Face. Okay, so do you remember when I didn't have this? I want you to not panic. And I want you to remember what it was like when I had no layer masks. So I'm going to save the file, just a minute, right now. Now I'm going to disable this layer mask, disable this layer mask, and disable this layer mask. I mean, that's just the solid fills with Gaussian blur and no fun in there. And I'll remove this. I mean, look at that. Watch what the layer mask does. 1, 2, 3, and a dark. And look at how pretty that is. And that's what you need to do. What you need to do is to build your values, trust your layer masks. Don't paint with too small a brush until you're getting to the final little details like this dark that I put in under his nose. And I'll see you in the next movie. But before you go on to the next movie, please go through and get all the values that you want for his face, minus his eyes or her eyes and their mouth. Okay, I think the nose is more part of the face than the mouth and the eyes and the hair. So please build up to those and use the process. All right, thank you. And no more than one color on one layer. Okay, thanks.